The era of renting intelligence is coming to a sudden, violent end. For the last 2 years, we have lived under the rule of the cloud giants, paying monthly tributes to access the minds of machines. But the walls of that golden cage are beginning to crack. We are witnessing the great AI migration, a fundamental shift in how humanity interacts with artificial intelligence. It is no longer a distant whisper coming from massive server farms tucked away in remote deserts. It is moving directly onto your personal devices. This is the transition from a borrowed mind to a sovereign one. Think about the current landscape. When you use ChatGPT or Claude, you aren't really using an application on your computer. You are sending a digital signal across the ocean to a supercomputer that costs billions of dollars to run. You are renting their compute power, their data, and their rules. But that model is dying. AI is migrating from those massive, distant server farms directly into the palm of your hand, onto your laptop, and into offline workstations that don't need a single bar of Wi-Fi to think. This isn't a futuristic prediction. It is the reality unfolding right now across every industry, from high-end software engineering to the creative arts. It is happening anywhere an internet connection is unavailable, unwanted, or untrusted. The major players are already positioning themselves for this new world. While they might still want your subscription fee, companies like Meta with the Llama series and Google with the release of Gemma are providing the blueprints for this liberation. Alongside them is a global community of open source developers who are working tirelessly to ensure that intelligence belongs to everyone, not just those with a corporate API key. They are building a world where the power of a neural network isn't gatekept by a credit card. This global movement is destroying the barriers to entry that once protected the massive tech monopolies. Why is this happening so fast? The answer lies in the growing demand for sovereign intelligence. Users are becoming increasingly wary of privacy concerns. Every prompt you send to a cloud provider is a piece of your identity, your business strategy, or your creative spark that is harvested by a corporation. Beyond privacy, there is the simple matter of cost. Paying $20 every month for a tool that can be throttled, censored, or taken away at any moment is starting to feel like a bad deal. People want tools they can own, not just tools they rent. They want the certainty that their digital brain will work even if the company behind it goes bankrupt or changes its terms of service. Most people believe a specific lie about how technology works today. They think that AI is too big, too heavy, and too hungry for power to ever live on a standard computer. They believe it needs the internet to think. They are wrong. This is the shocking shift that is currently catching the world off guard. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The reality is that we are moving away from the era of massive data centers that consume as much electricity as small cities. Contrast that image for a moment. On one hand, you have a warehouse filled with thousands of humming servers, cooled by industrial-scale fans, all working to answer a single question sent from halfway around the globe. On the other hand, you have a single sleek laptop sitting on a wooden table in a room with no internet connection. That laptop is running a complex neural network, generating code, writing stories, and analyzing data with zero latency and total privacy. The cloud AI is a brain you borrow. Local AI is a brain you own. One is a tether that can be cut at any time. The other is an extension of your own mind that stays with you wherever you go. But while the cloud giants are building walls to keep you paying, Google just did something that might have destroyed their own monopoly. And the reason why is hidden deep in a model called Gemma. This specific breakthrough changes everything we thought we knew about how intelligence works. To understand why we are moving toward local sovereignty, we must examine the world we are leaving behind. The current cloud-first paradigm is a system built on total dependence. For several years, the most advanced cognitive tools in human history were locked away behind the walls of massive corporate infrastructures. We have become habituated to the idea that artificial intelligence happens out there, in the vast server farms of OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google. This era has turned us into digital tenants, always one missed payment away from losing access to our tools. This centralization of power was framed as hardware necessity, but it became a mechanism for control. When we talk about the conflict between paid and free AI, we are discussing the subscription trap. For $20 a month, users are granted temporary passes into these massive neural networks. But this access is conditional and often limited. Even as a paying customer, you are frequently subjected to throttling during peak hours, where speed slows because corporations prioritize enterprise clients. More concerning is the increasing level of censorship. These cloud models are fine-tuned by committees to avoid controversy, often resulting in refusal responses. You are paying for a tool that has been intentionally hobbled to suit a corporate brand image rather than your specific needs. Beyond cost, there is the escalating privacy problem. In the cloud model, every prompt is a transaction of data. For a novelist writing a plot twist or a developer building an algorithm, this is a security nightmare. Your data is harvested, analyzed, and used to refine systems that corporations sell back to you. In this setup, you are not just the customer, your data is the product. This massive harvesting of human creativity is the engine that drives the cloud giants, but it creates a persistent risk for anyone who values confidentiality. Sovereign intelligence requires that your thoughts stay on your own silicon, away from prying eyes. The turning point came from an unexpected internal leak at Google. The famous no-moat memo suggested that while corporations poured billions into proprietary models, the open source community was quietly winning. The memo admitted that local models were becoming faster, more customizable, and more private than anything the giants were building. This was the moment the industry realized the monopoly on intelligence was an illusion that could be shattered by the collective effort of developers around the world. It signaled the beginning of the end for the gatekeepers, proving that the most valuable technological advancements were no longer happening behind closed doors, but in the open. To visualize this, consider a simple analogy. Cloud AI is like a grand library where you must pay a fee and show identification to read a single page. You can only read what the librarian permits, and you can never take books home. Local AI is like owning the entire library. You have the keys. You can walk in at any time without an internet connection and read without anyone recording your choices. You do not just use the information, you own the vessel. If you are tired of renting tools and want to own the future, hit that subscribe button. We are tracking the revolution daily. The technology is ready and the models are free, but there is one specific breakthrough that makes local AI finally smarter than the paid versions. It is not just about size, it is about a fundamental change in how these models are compressed and delivered. The reason why this is happening now is hidden in a breakthrough that allows models to maintain their intelligence while losing their bulk. This is the death of latency, where the speed of thought matches the speed of the machine. This shift is a fundamental change in how neural networks function on personal hardware. The barrier between your intent and execution is vanishing. We are moving from massive data centers to local silicon. To understand this power, we must look at the heart of the engine. There is one specific breakthrough that makes local AI finally smarter than the versions you pay for. It is a leap in efficiency that defies the old logic of computing. It is the moment where the local brain finally surpasses the borrowed one in the ways that actually matter. The breakthrough that changes the trajectory of the digital age is embodied in the arrival of Gemma 4. Unlike its predecessors, which required the massive compute of a remote data center to exhibit true reasoning, Gemma 4 is designed for extreme efficiency. It represents the pinnacle of a new generation of lightweight, high-performance models that prove that bigger is no longer the only way to be better. The engineers at Google released these model weights to the public, essentially handing over the blueprints of a sophisticated digital mind to anyone with a modern graphics card. This isn't just a minor update, it is a complete reimagining of the neural network's architecture. It prioritizes the density of information and the pathways of logic over the sheer bloated volume of parameters that defined the early, wasteful, and expensive years of the AI boom. At the heart of this miracle is a process known as quantization. Imagine trying to pack an entire university library into a single leather suitcase. In the early days, you would have to leave most of the books behind. Quantization is different. It is a mathematical technique that reduces the precision of the model's weights from complex floats down to much smaller integers. While traditional logic suggests this would result in a massive loss of intelligence, the reality is startlingly different. Through advanced optimization, these models can fit into the standard RAM of a home computer while retaining nearly all of their original IQ. It is the compression of genius into a form factor that fits in your backpack, turning a high-end laptop into a mobile think tank that functions perfectly and independently without a connection to the internet at all. The real-world implications are best seen in the hands of creators who no longer want to be tethered. Imagine a game developer sitting on a flight with zero access to Wi-Fi. In the cloud-first era, their creative work would be halted, but with Gemma 4 running locally, the process never stops. They are building a massive open world game and need thousands of lines of unique dialogue for non-player characters. Instead of relying on a distant server that might lag or refuse the prompt, the developer uses the local AI to generate infinite, context-aware dialogue in real time. The AI understands the lore of the world and the specific traits of the character, all while operating at the speed of the local processor. This is the true death of latency, the moment the machine stops being a middleman and becomes an immediate, responsive partner in the total act of digital creation. But we are not just talking about chatbots. We are witnessing the birth of local agents. When sovereign intelligence lives on your hard drive, it gains a level of system access that a cloud-based service could never safely achieve. A local agent can look at your file system and help you build entire applications from scratch without sending a single byte of data to the web. It becomes a conductor for your operating system, organizing your digital life and executing complex workflows. It does not just answer questions, it takes meaningful actions. It can refactor code, edit video, and manage private databases with total privacy. This ensures that your most valuable intellectual property never leaves your hardware, removing the constant risk of massive corporate leaks. It is the total shift from a borrowed tool to a permanent, private, and secure asset that belongs entirely and exclusively to the individual user. This transition highlights a growing divide. Cloud AI has become increasingly sanitized and refusal heavy. To protect corporate brands, companies have implemented strict safety filters that often trigger false positives, refusing to help with legitimate tasks. This results in a frustrating experience where the user is constantly negotiating with a digital nanny. Local models like Gemma 4 offer raw, uncensored power. Because you own the model, you decide the boundaries. Whether you are a researcher or a novelist, you need a tool that follows instructions without hesitation. The local model is obedient and reliable, responding with a speed and honesty that the cloud-based version simply cannot match today. It is not just about raw speed. When AI lives on your hard drive, it changes the very fundamental nature of what an application itself even is. The fundamental shift in how software is developed and deployed is perhaps the most profound consequence of the migration toward local silicon. In the cloud-first era, building an artificial intelligence application was essentially an exercise in permission. Every independent developer was forced to begin the process at a gateway controlled by the cloud giants. You needed a registered account, a valid credit card, and an API key that could be revoked at any moment without warning. This created a fragile ecosystem where innovation was constantly tethered to the pricing structures and content policies of a few massive corporations. When intelligence is a service you rent, you do not own your product. You are managing a thin, vulnerable interface over someone else's digital property. The transition to local models like Gemma 4 changes the underlying mathematics of digital innovation. For developers, the elimination of API costs is a total removal of the ceiling on what can be built. In the old paradigm, every user expansion meant a proportional increase in server costs. If an app went viral, developers risked bankruptcy from the massive surge in high API call volumes. Now that equation is inverted. By moving the processing power to the user's local device, the developer can scale to millions of users with zero additional infrastructure costs. This creates tools that were previously economically impossible, allowing for new types of secure, local diagnostic and financial tools. This democratization of power is called the Gemma effect. By releasing high-quality weights, Google fundamentally dismantled the barrier that once protected the AI monopoly. We are witnessing a moment where a teenager working in a basement can access the same level of reasoning and processing power that 2 years ago was reserved for mid-sized tech startups. The source of competitive advantage has shifted from who has the largest server farm to who has the most creative implementation of the code. This is the death of the gatekeeper. The independent open source developers are the new architects of this landscape. Building tools independently and without corporate permission, this creates an inevitable conflict between the individual and the corporation. For the cloud giants, the ideal future is one of AI as a service, a world of recurring revenue where intelligence is a metered utility like electricity or water. They want a world where you never stop paying for the right to think with digital assistants. Conversely, The individual wants AI as a utility, a one-time hardware investment providing value for years. This is a battle for the soul of computing. On one side is the golden cage of the subscription model. On the other is the total, uncompromised sovereignty of the local hard drive. As this conflict unfolds, the very nature of operating systems is beginning to change. We are approaching a time when an OS will not just be a folders and shortcuts, but a local brain that understands the context of your entire life's work. Imagine an operating system that has indexed every document you have written, every piece of code you have committed, and every email you have sent, all while keeping that data offline. This local brain does not need to search for a file. It understands the intent behind your query and can synthesize information from a decade of personal data in milliseconds. It is not a tool you visit in a browser. It is a permanent extension of your own cognitive process, integrated directly into the physical silicon of your local machine. This hardware revolution is visible in the market. We are currently seeing the rise of the AI PC, a new category of hardware designed specifically to run these high-performance models. Within the next 24 months, these neural processing units will become the industry standard. A computer without the ability to run sovereign intelligence locally will soon feel as antiquated and useless as a laptop without a Wi-Fi card. The race is no longer about who can build the biggest cloud. It is about who can put the most intelligence into the smallest, most efficient piece of local silicon. But if the AI is free and the processing happens on your own hardware, the entire economic foundation of the modern internet begins to crumble. If the cloud is no longer the destination, how do the world's biggest companies continue to exist? The answer is, they might not survive the transition. The traditional economic engine of the Silicon Valley elite is built on the foundation of recurring revenue. Software as a service, or SaaS, has been the holy grail for investors for over a decade, promising a perpetual stream of income from users who never truly own the tools they use. But as the intelligence migration accelerates, this entire financial structure is beginning to show deep structural cracks. The potential collapse of the AI subscription bubble is no longer a fringe theory. It is a mathematical inevitability. When the core product, intelligence, becomes a local commodity rather than a metered service, the justification for a $20 a month subscription fee vanishes. We are witnessing the end of the era where the digital mind was a leased asset, and the economic repercussions are sending shockwaves through the global market. This fundamental realignment of wealth and power is only the beginning of a larger seismic shift in the technology sector. The cost of running the massive H100 clusters required to power cloud AI is astronomical, running into billions of dollars for energy and maintenance. In contrast, the cost of consumer-grade neural processing units is plummeting even as their efficiency doubles with every hardware cycle. This creates an unsustainable gap for the cloud giants. Why would a mid-sized corporation continue to pay $30 per user for a tool like Microsoft Copilot when they can achieve the same results using a fine-tuned Gemma model running on their internal network for free? For a company with 1,000 employees, that is a savings of $360,000 every year. In a competitive global economy, that is not just a budget optimization, it is a survival strategy. By reclaiming their digital sovereignty, these businesses are cutting the cord to expensive server farms and reinvesting that capital into their own proprietary local systems. This shift is fueling a massive creative explosion in local-first tools. We are moving away from a world where creators are limited by the bandwidth of their internet connection or the restrictive policies of a cloud provider. For filmmakers, the rise of local AI video editing means that a high-end workstation can now handle complex rotoscoping, color grading, and generative fill in real time without a single byte ever leaving the room. For musicians, it means local composition tools that can generate orchestral layers or vocal harmonies with zero latency. For 3D artists, the integration of local models allows for the generation of complex textures and environmental assets on the fly. This is personal power in its purest form, turning every local machine into a professional-grade studio that requires no permission to function and demands no monthly fee to remain active. Take, for example, the story of a small indie game studio that was once on the brink of financial ruin due to the rising cost of creative assets. They had budgeted $50,000 a year just for AI-driven dialogue and asset generation services to populate their massive open-world game. They were caught in the subscription trap where their very ability to create was dependent on the pricing whims of a distant corporation. However, by pivoting to a local server architecture powered by open-source models, they were able to eliminate that entire line item from their budget. They didn't just save money, they gained freedom. They were able to build complex narratives and landscapes that were too large to ever be processed through a cloud API. This studio represents the new vanguard of the industry, lean, sovereign, and entirely independent. We are moving from a world of rented brains to personal power. Which side are you on? Are you sticking with ChatGPT or moving local? Let me know in the comments. This is a declaration of independence in a digital world designed to keep you dependent. However, while this transition offers unparalleled freedom and economic relief for the individual, it simultaneously creates a vacuum of control that has power structures deeply concerned. When AI is local, it cannot be censored, throttled, or recalled by a central authority. It is a dream for users, but it creates a massive problem for safety and international regulation, one that the government is not ready for. The guardrails constructed around cloud-based AI are being bypassed entirely, leading to a new set of risks the world is only beginning to truly understand. The era of total permission is fading, replaced by a wild frontier of unrestricted local intelligence. The primary victory for the sovereign user in this transition is the absolute reclamation of privacy. In the cloud era, every interaction was a transaction where the currency was personal or corporate data. When a developer prompts a cloud-based model with a proprietary code snippet, or a lawyer asks for a summary of a sensitive deposition, they are effectively leaking that information into a black box owned by a third party. History has shown that these databases are never truly impenetrable. Data breaches, internal leaks, or even policy changes can turn yesterday's private query into today's public liability. Local AI fundamentally changes this equation. When the weights of a model like Gemma 4 reside on your local NVMe drive, and the processing occurs entirely within the confines of your own workstation's RAM, the concept of a data breach shifts from a systemic corporate risk to a physical security concern. Your secrets stay on your silicon. This level of security is the ultimate win for industries where confidentiality is not just a preference, but a legal requirement for survival in a competitive landscape. However, this transition introduces a profound ethical tension that society is currently ill-equipped to handle. This is the shadow side of local sovereignty. Cloud-based AI is governed by strict, often heavy-handed reinforcement learning from human feedback. These models are designed with guardrails to prevent the generation of harmful, biased, or illegal content. While these filters are often criticized for being overly sensitive or commercially sanitized, they represent a centralized attempt at AI safety. In the local first world, those guardrails are optional. Open source developers have already begun releasing unfiltered versions of popular models, removing the hard-coded refusals and moral lectures built in by the original corporations. When an AI is local, no central authority can turn it off, censor its output, or monitor its usage. The same technology that allows a dissident to bypass state censorship also allows a malicious actor to generate sophisticated phishing campaigns or biological weapon instructions without detection. This is the paradox of distributed intelligence. Total freedom inevitably includes the freedom to misuse the tool, and governments currently have no mechanism to regulate software that exists entirely offline. This shift is driving a massive silicon arms race among hardware manufacturers. Nvidia, Apple, and Qualcomm are no longer just competing on gaming performance or battery life. They are fighting for dominance in the local AI market. We are seeing a fundamental pivot in chip architecture with the introduction of dedicated neural processing units. These are specialized components designed to handle the complex matrix multiplications required by neural networks with extreme efficiency. Nvidia is leveraging its dominance in the data center to bring enterprise-grade power to the desktop with its RTX series, while Apple has integrated increasingly powerful AI accelerators into its M-series silicon. Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Elite is bringing this same capability to the Windows laptop market, promising a future where high-performance AI is not a luxury for those with expensive desktop rigs, but a standard feature of every portable device. This is the technical foundation of the migration. The infrastructure is moving from the sky to the palm of your hand. The scale of this hardware advancement is difficult to overstate. It is a surprising but verifiable fact that the latest generation of consumer tablets, like Apple's high-end iPads, are now more powerful at certain AI tasks than the massive server clusters that ran the first version of GPT-3. This compression of power from a room of servers to a thin slate of glass marks the beginning of the distributed intelligence era. We are moving away from the centralized hub-and-spoke model of the internet, where all intelligence resides at the center and users are merely passive terminals. Instead, we are entering a period of radical decentralization. In this new architecture, the edges of the network are just as smart as the core. Every phone, laptop, and local server becomes an independent node of high-level reasoning. This is a fundamental restructuring of the internet's architecture that renders central control obsolete. As this reality sets in, offline is becoming the ultimate luxury and the ultimate security feature. In a world where the cloud is increasingly seen as a landscape of surveillance and potential leaks, the ability to function entirely disconnected from the web is a mark of true sovereignty. High-stakes environments, from government intelligence agencies to elite research labs, are already moving toward air-gapped AI systems. These are environments where the local brain is physically disconnected from any network, ensuring that the intelligence it produces remains in a state of total isolation. The cloud is a crowded public square. The local brain is a private sanctuary for your most valuable ideas. This evolution is a move from a rented existence to one of ownership. We are on the threshold of a world where your digital tools are as private as your thoughts. But if the cloud is fading and the local brain is rising, the implications go beyond privacy. It changes the very rhythm of our daily existence and the way we interact with information. So if the cloud is fading and the local brain is rising, what does your daily life actually look like in 2026? Imagine walking up in 2026. Your device does not ping a server in Virginia to tell you your schedule. The sovereign user lives in a world where intelligence is ambient and local. This personal AI has been with you for years, not as a product you subscribe to, but as a digital reflection of your own history. It knows your nuances, your shorthand, and your specific professional jargon because it has processed every document and conversation you have ever had, all within the encrypted confines of your personal hardware. There is no middleman, no terms of service update that can suddenly restrict your access to your own creative process. This is the ultimate fruition of the migration, the transition from AI as a distant oracle to AI as an intimate extension of the human mind. It is a tool that learns without spying and assists without reporting back to a corporate mothership. Your personal AI grows with you from childhood, learning your preferences and habits without ever sharing that data with a third party. We are witnessing the messy, transitionary dial-up phase of this technology. Much like the early days of the internet, where we tolerated slow speeds for the promise of connectivity, we are tolerating high hardware costs for the promise of local autonomy. However, the broadband moment for local intelligence is arriving with the release of models like Gemma 4 and its open weights contemporaries. These models are the high-speed fiber lines of mind. They are small enough to be ubiquitous, yet powerful enough to handle the most demanding cognitive tasks. In this near-future landscape, the idea of renting a brain from a cloud giant will seem as bizarre as renting the air you breathe. The subscription economy will be viewed as a temporary historical anomaly, a brief period where we traded our privacy for convenience. Within 5 years, a bold but inevitable prediction will come to pass. The very act of signing in to use an artificial intelligence will feel as antiquated as signing in to use a calculator. Intelligence will be integrated into the silicon of every device. You will not ask a cloud service to write an email. Your operating system's local brain will simply know the context and draft it for you. This shift effectively dismantles the monopoly held by the cloud giants. When the cost of intelligence drops to the price of the electricity required to run a chip, the business model of the golden cage collapses. The power moves back to the edges of the network, to the individual developers and the sovereign users who have chosen to own their tools rather than lease them. The open source community becomes the primary architect of human progress, providing the weights for a world that no longer requires permission. The escalation of this technology has been breathtaking. It started as a laboratory experiment, a curiosity of academic papers and high-end research facilities. It evolved into a massive, centralized power held by a few corporations that offered us a glimpse of the future through a paywall. But now, through the efforts of disruptors like the Gemma team and the relentless iteration of open-source developers, that power has been democratized. We have moved from a world of rented brains to one of personal power. The local brain is not just a software update, it is a declaration of independence. It ensures that the most powerful technology ever created by humanity remains a utility for the many, rather than a weapon for the few. This is the moment where the sovereign user finally steps out of the shadow of the cloud and into the light of absolute digital autonomy. As we look toward this horizon, the choice becomes clear. The cloud is a tether, a silver cord that connects your productivity to a corporate server that can be severed at moment. Local is freedom. It is the ability to create, think, and build in total privacy and absolute safety without a subscription. Stay ahead of the future by mastering these local tools now. Subscribe to keep your edge. This is not just a software update. This is the moment AI finally broke free from its cage. The future is not in cloud, it is in your pocket. See you in the next one.